Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in today's video, which we'll be doing a comparison to this year's HASLAB, the Dragonfly, versus last year's HASLAB, the H.I.S.S tank. And I want to see which one is better. So without further ado, everybody, let's dive right into the video. Before we even dive into the video, let's take a moment to look at these two. These two pieces are just phenomenal in anyone's collection. It is quite a time to be alive for what Hasbro is doing with their HASLABs. I think I will do a separate video on my thoughts on HASLABs. I know they're kind of controversial, but nonetheless, we do have some phenomenal products coming out of Hasbro from HASLAB, and just to have the Dragonfly next to the H.I.S.S tank here, it is pretty exciting, and they look really, I want to say, is the word I'm looking for. I think the word I'm looking for is just dynamite next to one another. And if you can get them in any sort of setup where you have the two going against one another, particularly with the blast effects from the Dragonfly, it's just phenomenal. So how are we going to do this video? How are we going to do this comparison? Alright guys, how are we going to go ahead and compare these two great vehicles in this video? Well, we're going to do it with 4 different categories. First category being the accessories that each vehicle came with. Second category being the articulation. Now these are not action figures. When I say articulation, I'm referring to like guns moving, wheels moving, treads, anything that moves is my idea of articulation. Followed by paint apps, and then we're going to wrap up the video with the price point. Each category, each vehicle can earn up to 5 points. Now I do have the option myself to go ahead and bonus a half a point for each category, just because I think, being that these are two G.I. Joe vehicles being made by the same company under the same umbrella, which is a HASLAB, I really think my pricing, my point award system is going to be pretty close here, and I do want to have a definitive winner. I will tell you from a biased perspective, I do love the H.I.S.S tank. Now that has nothing to do with saying that this particular toy is not better than this one. It's just letting you know that I like the H.I.S.S more than the Dragonfly. It's just a vehicle that I find to be the most iconic vehicle in the G.I. Joe world. But that's not going to stop me from making this video and trying to make a fair video with this point system. And I expect that this is going to be a really close video, and it almost might be difficult to pick one. But without further ado, guys, I'm going to try. Let's do this. Alright guys, first up is this H.I.S.S tank. We are going to be discussing accessories that everything this vehicle came with. Now, believe it or not, I have, as you might have noticed, I actually don't have any of the 4 figures that this vehicle came with open. I do have, so what I have piled on my H.I.S.S tank is actually not the 4 figures that came with the H.I.S.S tank. These are actually the guys from the Fire Squad package that you were able to get as part of the H.I.S.S tank after they released it. This was open, this was not part of the actual HASLAB. So these are the current figures that I am indeed using, because I still haven't opened any of the figures this thing came with. It came with a driver, a tactician, as well as a like a gunner, a female gunner, and of course the Cobra Commander on a retro card. Were the 4 particular figures it came with. They are really, really cool. I should get around to opening, I just have not done so. So in many ways, similar to the Dragonfly, one of the things they did for accessories is they gave you 2 different options for the tank guards as well as the hatch here, or whatever you want to call it. So you had the classic vintage look, you can make this, or they made it more modern, which kind of goes with the G.I. Joe Classified. I went for the more modern look here. You can go ahead, and the cool thing about the hatch here, the way that it opens, if I may, yeah, these gold wing type doors here that open on the side, which I absolutely loved from a modern look perspective. It just gives the whole tank a different look as far as being a little bit more on the modern side. And if you don't care for it, well then you can go ahead and put the classic vintage hatch on top of this and make it look like your actual, 1980s vintage H.I.S.S tank. Then next up you have with these telescoping missile launchers that you're able to get as that tier that you're able to unlock. This is another great, phenomenal accessory that they added to the H.I.S.S tank that I think to bring it up to something that looked a little more modern in today's times. So the last 2 accessories we got as part of some of the tier package was the shield right here, but more importantly, really cool machine guns with the side drum rolls right here that I thought added a really nice touch. You could probably have 2 figures on top of here to actually man both of these. And I just thought this was another really nice touch that they went ahead and added to the HISS tank when they released it as a tier. And once again, I think this is another phenomenal accessory to go ahead and modernize the HISS tank. I just think the Hasbro team did a phenomenal job once again modernizing such a vintage and iconic, well, about to say, I don't know what to say. Guys, this is another great addition, I think, that the Hasbro team did to modernize such a vintage vehicle, which is indeed the HISS tank. So with all the accessories this bad boy came with, are there any accessories I think I would have liked to have seen additionally? Well, matter of fact, there is one definitely accessory that I would have liked to have seen for this that the Dragonfly actually does have, and that is indeed blast effects. I just think that made it fall so short, and we'll dive into that a little bit more when we get to the Dragonfly portion of this video to discuss how the blast effects takes that vehicle to the next level. Also, the other piece of criticism that I would have, while I love the accessories, I love the telescoping missiles here, it's so easy. Oh, it's not going to do it now. Now that I'm talking criticism on it, doesn't want to do it. It just, everything comes off so... I have to laugh now that I'm filming. It wants to stay in nice. But, you know, a lot of times this stuff, when you're messing with it and you're trying to utilize this portion, it's just, it doesn't fit all the way in here enough. There's not enough of a secure, like, click. That typically, anyway, minus right now that I'm filming, when you go to, like, move this thing, it pops right out, except for right now. And a lot of times these missiles, while I went ahead and took the time to make sure they're secure, do pop out pretty easily. So some of the accessories I would like to have seen a way where they kind of like snap in a little better. Although this thing is making me a really bad liar at this moment, I just feel like typically, at least for me, I don't know what you guys think, comment below if you have the same issues. A lot of times when I'm messing with this stuff, it just pops out real easy and it's kind of on the frustrating side. But that is just me kind of nitpicking, and I'm going to stick to my nitpicking. I think I'm going to end up giving this bad boy, from an accessories perspective, 0 from 5, 4.5 points. Like I said, I just think if it had some sort of blast effects on here, it would take this whole thing to the next level. But that's okay, guys. It still had a lot. I mean, really, still is a bang for your buck. We'll dive into that when we get to the price point of the video here. But let's go ahead and take a look at the Dragonfly here and talk about its accessories. Guys, moving on to the Dragonfly, let's discuss accessories. Now, just like the HISS tank, we got 4 figures. That's Wild Bill. Wild Bill is indeed in the cockpit right now. I have not actually opened up my other figures yet, which is something I'm known to do, but we have Crazy Legs, we have Ripcord, and we have Glenda, and I am one of those guys. Never heard of Glenda. Not the biggest fan of the figure. Just don't think it goes with this. I mean, no, Wild Bill's got a little bit of blue, but to me, she's a lot of blue. But nonetheless, 4 figures, just like the HISS tank, which obviously, by the way, when we get into the Rattler, which is going to be coming with some patches and 3 figures, we're all going to be just slightly disappointed with that. But with the Dragonfly, it is 4 figures and a ton of weapon accessories, which we're going to dive into here momentarily. But I want to discuss my I would say my most favorite accessory, and accessory I thought was cool, but I really didn't comprehend the level it brings to this particular vehicle until I had it in hand. I was able to mess with it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about this flight stand. Let's get this bad boy hooked up. I want to talk about this. So what advantage this has is space, guys. Take a look right here. Now this 12 scale Dragonfly is now basically hovering over the HISS tank. Now, while space is an issue up here for the Dragonfly from a space perspective, we now take up very minimum space below for a display. Essentially, you could put your Dragonfly above another vehicle, which is condensing space. So even for the way I have my Dragonfly displayed on my wall shelf, I'm able to have like a vehicle almost underneath of it, figures underneath of it, so it makes this more efficient from a space. And space is going to be an issue for most collectors, guys, especially when we're talking about something as 12 scale size vehicles as these two. So the fact that I can get my Vamp underneath here, or another vehicle, another figures underneath, it's making it more efficient from a space perspective, and that's something I didn't really take in consideration until I got my Dragonfly in hand. I'm like, where am I putting this thing? So once again, guys, this piece that they thought of and included into the HASLAB was a giant success in my opinion, to the point where I'm actually going to end up awarding that half a bonus point that I was discussing, because it really helps us from a space perspective. Now obviously, yes, you still have space up here, so whether or not this is going to be on top of your display is what I would recommend, which most people do. But once again, if you're utilizing the stand, you can put stuff below it, therefore making space more efficient. I freaking love it. Now the other thing this thing does, this stand adds dimension. It's making it look like the helicopter is in attack mode. It looks like you could display it the way that I will. We're going to get into some of the accessories that this thing has, but with the attack missiles or whatever you do, it makes it look like it's in an attack position. And you could actually switch the Dragonfly around the other side and have it look like it's lifting off, or in the position where helicopters look like when they're doing a rescue mission. So you have actually two different options with this display depending on how you want to display your Dragonfly. I like it in this position, puts it more in an attack position, which I absolutely love. So let's get into more additional. So let's move on with our accessories, guys. So once again, what else does this thing have that the HISS tank actually didn't come with, that I freaking absolutely love, and I really feel like it takes the Dragonfly to the next level, is blast effects, and they look really freaking good. Let's take a quick peek at that. And there we go. Come on, guys. Tell me this doesn't add to the level of what this thing has to offer. If we just turn this thing around a little bit here, we can really start to see the dimensions of what these blast effects have to offer. And there we go, adding another blast effect. Now I'm adding the blast effect onto what's still on the wing, making it look like this missile's about to take off, versus the other side, the missile's already taken off. So the options are for days, and that's what I love about this, between the stickers, which we'll discuss here momentarily, the different missiles and weapon out. Like, you can have, I mean, if you have the space, you could have multiple Dragonflies, different setups, just make it their own. You can have a whole fleet of these pretty easily, with all the different options they give you, which is what Hasbro does. They want, of course, they want anyone to buy multiple ones. And by the way, I'm not even done with blast effects. Let's keep moving. And here we go, even more blast effects. I mean, just take a look at this. I even unwrapped some of these blast effects for you guys because I didn't actually get around to doing it, but I had to show this off in this video for you guys. This thing just looks freaking amazing. So guys, once again, as far as accessories, man, we covered a lot of it. We're talking about all the different weapon accessories you get. You get missiles, you get a big side gun, you get a piece that you could, I don't know what you want to call it, but a piece that you could wrench that you can utilize on the wing, the giant machine gun, all that, you know, the winch, by the way, is the cool piece I did not break out, that you can kind of use to have like a guy hanging down for like a rescue, or like, you know, like a night force mission, if you will. So that's another really cool piece that I really dig a lot. Alright guys, wrapping up the portion of this video for the accessories. This bad boy, man, it's an easy 5 points. I already mentioned we're gonna give another half a point for some of the additional accessories to really bring it to the next level. So that's going to be 5.5 points. And like I said, this is what brings this vehicle to the next level, in my opinion. I mean, it's a gorgeous piece to begin with, just like the HISS tank. But like, what brings it to that next level? What brings it to that next stage in collecting? What makes it kind of just slightly more than just a toy? And that's going to be a combination between this amazing stand that adds like a certain look to the whole vehicle, as well as these accessories, particularly the blast effects. That's just where the HISS tank fell slightly short. You know, they're both amazing vehicles. So once again, guys, 5.5 points being awarded in this category. Let's move back to the HISS tank. Moving on to articulations. First things first, this HISS tank, as you can see here, has moving rubber tread. So guys, I'm gonna tell you right off the bat, we're gonna dive into it, but this bad boy, from an articulation perspective with moving parts, the fact that it has rubber tread and this tank moves so freely, it's getting 5 points. 5 out of 5. right off the bat. But let's talk about some other areas of articulation. So when we were covering the accessories, we did talk about that this thing came with these missiles that did go ahead and telescope in and out, which I just thought was really, really awesome. I'm glad that it's working, because some of my complaints was this thing pops out pretty easily. It has moving turrets on the top, as well as side guns here that move as well. We have the canopy that moves that we kind of showed real quick as one of the accessories, because it came with the vintage one as well. It has the gold wing doors up here that moves. It has functioning lights, by the way, which we'll kind of tie that into. I guess my battery died because the lights don't work. We're going to take them batteries out then, because we don't want batteries. But it does have functioning lights as well. It has a ramp that comes down, and then we have a full interior where you can easily put one, maybe even two figures. This is really cool. I'm really digging how it has this ramp that comes down. This can set you up, by the way, for some phenomenal photography right here. Let me go ahead and get this thing a little better in frame, where you can have a figure, a trooper, an infantry just coming on out to go ahead and do the bidding of Cobra. And once again, guys, this adds to any sort of photography you might do, or just any sort of display really that you might want to set up. The fact that you can put this ramp down and go ahead and have troops in it, or troop building essentially, I just think once again adds to the capabilities, if you will, what you could do with this particular vehicle. Alright guys, wrapping up articulation for the HISS tank before we move on over to the Dragonfly. Like I already said early on, it's 5 points out of 5. I really can't think of anything else Hasbro could have done. I already mentioned blast effects from the accessories, but that falls under accessories. So I'm giving this a 5 out of 5, guys. On to the Dragonfly. So moving on to the Dragonfly, let's talk about articulation and what this thing can and cannot do. The thing we gotta test, right guys, is the propellers. And yes, of course, they function, and they function well. Once again, articulation is going to be more about what the plane can do as far as what can move, not move, what pops out, what doesn't. I might not have mentioned this for the HISS, but both vehicles do have lights. The HISS lights batteries are dead. I have not put any batteries into the Dragonfly, but both interiors light up. There's a spotlight on the Dragonfly. The HISS tank has like its own light that shows you the Cobra logo. So very similar. Pretty much that washes the two out from a comparison perspective. But once again, with the Dragonfly, what you can see here is the yellow flaps both move, and they move together, by the way. So you move one, the other one moves. Moving on from the yellow flaps to the rear of the helicopter, the rear wings, I guess you want to call them. I don't know the technical term. They move individually, so you move one, the other one does not move, but they do articulate, and articulate well. You can actually have it set up to kind of match the vintage Dragonfly, where the one wing is up and the other one's down, over a little bit. So you can definitely mimic that if you so choose. In terms of engine bays and things that pop out, you do have access to the engine, to the motor on top here. That pops out, and you can take a look. It's pretty well detailed. Once again, we'll talk paint here in a second. But the paint articulation, paint articulation, listen to me. The paint's very well, but this is more about showing you guys that it does pop open so you gain access. Once again, great for photography, great for display. You do have access to these machine guns here. It pops open so you can access the actual machine gun itself. And the beauty thing of the actual little machine guns on the side here, both I would say articulate. They're telescope. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. As you can see here, they move. So that's really phenomenal. The main turret gunner on the front of the helicopter here, or the Dragonfly, does move very well. Pretty much goes any direction that you want. Quick FYI, Gridiron Studios, if you're not familiar with them, is a really popular aftermarket company that does phenomenal work. You can take a look here at the vamp and stinger work that they do. Does have some modifications coming for the Dragonfly. I'm kind of low-key excited. One of the things they mentioned was this actual turret here. They want to upgrade it. I don't know what the hell that's going to look like, but I'm excited nonetheless. One thing I do want to add with the Dragonfly, while it's not something I'm demonstrating here, you can actually put figures on the on the actual landing gear as if the guy is working on it or he's getting ready to go on a mission. Pretty cool things that you could do. Once again, this goes back with the capabilities of this Dragonfly and what you could do with it from a photography standpoint and from just a display standpoint. So moving right along here, guys, the Dragonfly, 0 to 5 points. This is an easy 5 points. I don't know what else they could have done in terms of, from an articulation perspective, what else can move. I just don't know. Everything I think that needs to move moves. Everything that has access, you have access to. But let's go ahead and shift back to the HISS tank. Alright, moving on to the paint apps. Let's go ahead. I want to go ahead and check out the front gunner here to kind of really show you guys, I think, how well they did with the paint apps for the HISS. As you can see here, guys, the front gunner, even the front tips of this gunner in the front of the HISS tank has like little purplish effects right here. It has really good texture. It even has like little, even right here is a very dark gray to go against the black red here. Nothing really was cheapened out here, I think, in my opinion, from a paint app perspective. I can give you guys a fair comparison. I did look at, I have the God, what is that Star Wars Episode 1 droid called? The Tacta droid. The Destroyer droid, you know, that has a black series, which is, you know, equivalent to, that's basically Hasbro's Star Wars version of the Classified line. And even its guns had no paint apps here. I mean, it is not a HASLAB, but just to put in perspective what I look for when I'm looking for paint apps, I'm looking for things that kind of show some dimension, some realism to it. Everything I think is done really well in this gun. Let's go ahead and look at the top gunner real quick. Moving on to the main cannons, a lot like the front gunner, these main cannons have that nice purplish tint effect on the tips of the gun, which I really think is a nice effect. Once again, we have really good paint apps here. I want to say this is a little bit of gray here mixed in with the black. I just like how Hasbro went ahead. They added this purple effect to show like these main cannons have been used, which I really like. Once again, a little bit of dark gray here. You know, keep in mind, guys, this is a toy for adults. It isn't a collectible, but it's not necessarily a die cast. It's still very much, for all purposes here, a toy. So, you know, it's not like it's something that, you know, I really can't, I don't know what else at this price point Hasbro could have done from a paint perspective, so I do like the little bit of extras that they did here. Wrapping up the paint app section, guys, like I said, I don't think this is an overcomplicated vehicle. It's black and red. I like the little bit of red they added to it. I don't know what else they could have done to make it better, considering this isn't die cast. This isn't like a $1,500 jazzing Batmobile, right? This isn't a Hot Toy. This is still very much a Hasbro, I mean, for sake and purposes, a toy. So once again, guys, with that in mind, I give this a 5 out of 5 for the paint applications. Let's go ahead and talk about the Dragonfly once again. So moving on to the paint applications of the Dragonfly. They really did a phenomenal job. Even like, just like the HISS tank, you have the little, looks like weld jobs, if you will, that they're mimicking, as well as really solid, just overall green paint. Even the propellers have these really cool white stripes I'm really digging. You know, the attention to detail really is there. Even the rear, I'm calling wings, have like the red lights. It has a Dragonfly logo. Just the attention to detail is really there. Even the little, I'm gonna call them little missile guys, as you zoom in here, just paint it really well. The Sidewinder missile, which is oversized hilariously, but I think it goes really well with, you know, it is it's not real military stuff, it's just based off of real military vehicles. So the only complaint that I would have, and I'm just debating in my own head right now if I should deduct points because just the paint overall is phenomenal. I just feel like the front turret gunner, whatever you want to call it, should have some sort of effect at the barrels, just like the HISS tank did. And I've been definitely critical with the HISS tank, and I'm just like so hesitant to deduct points because in many ways I don't care personally. But it's 'cause overall it's perfect, to be honest with you, from a paint application perspective. But like, do I deduct points or any points for just the turret? And I keep 1 second, I'm like, oh, I should deduct even a couple 0.2 of a point, by the way, to be clear, you know, so it would be like a 4.8 instead of a 5. So in my head, I keep going back and forth. Comment below, like, if you would deduct points for something as silly as that, because everything else is there. I mean, it says Wild Bill, it's got the numbers, it's got the attention to detail is there, and it's just so hard. I'm like, what I want to do. I'm going to make it a 4.9 out of 5 because of the front turret gunner, if you will. And I'm very hesitant to do so. I'm hesitant to do so. I'm going to make it 4.9, even though everything else is there. You could make it a 5. There's no reason why you couldn't argue a 5. It is pretty much there. I'm just going to do a 4.9 because I'm trying to be fair. I definitely felt like I've been critical where I needed to be for the HISS tank, so I'm going to continue to do so for the Dragonfly. So once again, 4.9 for the Dragonfly. Let's dive into value so we can actually get this thing all wrapped up. Alright guys, moving into the final category for the HISS tank. What else can I say about this bad boy? I mean, you know, we kind of went over the accessories, the articulation, the paint, everything just is, from a price perspective, the 4 figures. I think this was right around $300-ish after taxes. I'm sure I'll post it up here somewhere. But you really just, I mean, in today's world, 2024, almost 2025, by the way, you know, for $300 and some for something that's basically exclusive at that. This was part of the HASLAB, so it was a made to order once it was back, so to speak. They've kept their word, by the way. They haven't done any sort of trickery with us. It's just been this HISS tank, so if you want it, you got to go second hand. Still not that bad. I think these things are around $400-500. I think it's a lot of value even at that price point. But for $300, guys, I really can't think of a reason why I can't easily give this a 5 out of 5. I mean, everything is there. You get the figures, you get the vehicle. When they did their first, like, not sneak peek, but like clue to say, hey, we have a new HASLAB coming from G.I. Joe, what do you think it is? And I thought to myself, I said, I wonder if it's going to be the HISS tank. My buddy was like, there's no way they'll make a 12 scale HISS tank, and here we are. So once again, from a price perspective, it is going to be definitely 5 points. I really can't think of a reason to give it less points. I mean, I think the value is seriously there. It's one of the best values you were to get. This won Vehicle of the Year for me when I did my video last year. I had it up against some other competition, including the NECA TMNT van. So this thing was an easy win. I mean, you really, comment below if you really think this thing was overpriced and what's your rationale for it, because I just don't see it. But guys, let's go ahead and get ready to wrap up this video. Let's do the Dragonfly next so we can actually wrap it up and come up with a winner between these two badass vehicles. Alright guys, as far as value is concerned, ironically, when this got released, I thought it'd be at least the price of the HISS tank. We live in a world with inflation, everything's going up. But a whole year later, this thing actually went down in price. It was $275. It actually just made sense, by the way, to become a Hasbro Pulse member if you're going to order anything else. So shipping for me technically was free. So this thing was right under the HISS tank by like $25 out the door, which blows my mind. I think there's just a lot of value, guys, for both vehicles. We really did discuss in terms of both vehicles, with the accessories being that we have the 4 figures, we have all these add-ons and different ways that you can actually have multiple Dragonflies, just like you could have multiple HISS tanks, but even so much more the Dragonfly, between the different loadouts you can use for weapons, the different stickers you can use. I didn't even briefly mention that one's like a zombie setup, so I mean, I am sure, I can't wait to see what people have out there on the internet with their setup. But the value is just an easy 5 points. I don't even need to spend a lot of time on this. It's a straight 5 points. I'm not going to add any additional points, although I could. Once again, what I really think brings this Dragonfly slightly above the HISS tank was the stand, was the Fire Blast. But I think this was a close race, guys, between the two phenomenal vehicles from the Hasbro team. Shout out to Lenny and the other guys and everyone else. I can't even think of their names. The work has just been, I think, phenomenal. But let's go ahead, add up our points, and end this phenomenal video. Alright guys, this is wrapping up our video. Thank you so much for watching and staying through the whole video. At least I'm assuming you did. Let's go ahead and count our final score. The H.I.S. tank comes in at 19.5 points in total, while the Dragonfly here comes in at 20.4 points. Almost my, well, not quite my max, because I could offer a bonus of a half a point for each category. It's not quite the max, but these are two phenomenal vehicles. What did the Dragonfly have to kind of bump it up? To be honest with you, it is the blast effects and the little display to go ahead and lift this thing in the air. Now this is a land vehicle, so I understand that's sort of like not possible, but just the blast effects alone, where I think this thing fell short, really adds a certain dynamic to this particular vehicle, whether you're doing photography, whether you're doing displaying, whatever you're doing with it, just the blast effects really add to the level of this thing. Tell me, do you agree, by the way? Do you have both vehicles, and which vehicle is your most favorite vehicle? Comment below, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Take it easy. Peace. And just as a quick bonus, if you made it this far and you want to know what this tank here is, it's actually the Ultimate Soldier tank. I think in the late 90s, early 2000s this was produced. If you want to see a video on it, or I'll go in depth with the details, who made it, when it was released, the size, and all that stuff, comment below. I need to know that you're interested in maybe a review on this bad boy right here.